Chapter 9. The River Princess. The canoe proceeded along the bayou stream in leisurely fashion. Uncle Rufus paddled evenly but slowly. Now and then he would stop along the edge to point out an herb. "Are some of them spices?" Nancy asked. Uncle Rufus said a few were, but most of the swamp herbs were used for medicinal purposes. Now that the old man had started talking about the bayou, he went on and on, telling about its wildlife. "Take spiders," he said. "They represents the devil on this earth. They pison folks, and snakes do too. You gotta be mighty careful of 'em." Uncle Rufus said that on the other hand, the turtle represented great patience. "Just like God's patience with man," he added, smiling. "And a turtle knows enough not to stick its neck out and get into other folks' business." As the girls chuckled, Uncle Rufus suddenly called their attention to a screeching sound. "Know what that is?" "Oh, it's a bird call, isn't it?" George asked. Uncle Rufus nodded. "Do you know what kind?" "A wild duck," Nancy guessed. "No," Uncle Rufus replied, "but somebody's sure enough trying to imitate one." "Is it being used as a signal?" Nancy asked. "Maybe so," Uncle Rufus answered, "but it's an awful bad imitation. Nobody who knows the bayou would be fooled by that." Just then, from the opposite direction came another call, exactly the same as the first. The girls exchanged meaningful glances. Who was imitating a wild duck's cry? Suddenly, Uncle Rufus chuckled and said that a couple of city boys must be playing a game in the bayou. Nancy and her friends, although they did not say so aloud, did not come to the same conclusion. It was possible that persons were signaling with some sinister purpose, perhaps to set another trap for the girls. Meanwhile, the canoe had already entered the narrow part of the stream. 15 minutes later, Uncle Rufus sang out, "The River Princess is just ahead." He paddled around a bend, and the girls found themselves facing a small pond. At the far side of it, against a backdrop of moss-covered oaks, lay the old showboat. It was about 100 feet long, 25 feet wide, and had 2 decks. The craft had listed slightly, and its lookout tower had been damaged by a falling tree. Uncle Rufus chuckled. I guess the River Princess was plenty proud in her day. Hundreds of gentlefolks used to come to see the shows." Bess gave a great, audible sigh. "I don't blame Colonel Haver for wanting to restore the River Princess. She's the most romantic thing I've seen in a long time." "And one of the worst wrecks," George retorted. Nancy smiled. "I agree partly with both of you, but really I don't think this showboat is beyond repair. Let's go aboard and look for ourselves." At that moment, hammering started on the craft. Bess involuntarily gave a shudder, and Uncle Rufus looked startled. Nancy grinned and said quickly, "Don't worry. Ghosts rarely work in the daytime." In a louder voice, she called, "Anybody home?" A moment later, a tall young man appeared on the lower deck and walked toward the railing. He was fine-featured and had reddish hair. "That must be Charles Bartolome," Bess said in a low voice. "I've seen his picture." "That's Mr. Bartolome, all right," Uncle Rufus spoke up. The young man, after his first look of surprise at seeing callers, smiled at the group in the canoe. "Hi," he called. Introductions were quickly exchanged. Under her breath, Bess murmured, "How in the world could Donna May ever have switched from him to Alex Upgrove?" Nancy and George shared the same feeling, but made no comment. Nancy told Charles Bartolome why she and her friends had come to the showboat and how she hoped to clear up the mystery. "We want to have the River Princess brought to Sunnymead so that the ball the Havers are planning will be a big success." "I, too, would like to see the mystery solved," said Charles. He did not mention the ball. "Good luck to you all." We'll probably need your help, Nancy told him. As a start, would you mind showing us around the River Princess? I'd be delighted to, he replied. I've become very fond of the old gal, but as soon as my job of restoring the showboat is completed, I'm leaving for New York. I'm going to live there permanently and continue my work as an architect. The girls were sure they knew the reason for the move. With Donna Mae married to Alex, he would no longer want to live in the New Orleans neighborhood. Uncle Rufus waited in the canoe while the girls climbed a ladder and went aboard. Charles led them inside to the auditorium. Fastened to the sloping floor were many rows of old-fashioned, cushioned opera chairs. A balcony, ornate in design, ran around 3 sides of the room, and on the 4th side was a stage. A tattered red and gold curtain hung down at the front of it. Charles remarked cheerfully, "A couple of coats of paint will do wonders for the River Princess. Actually, the old boat is not in such bad shape. It's just—" The young man paused. His listeners waited for him to go on. Finally, he said, "It's just that we can't find anybody willing to work on her or move her, and the men who were clearing out this part of the stream won't continue." "Is it because they were frightened by something which happened on the boat?" "Oh, there have been all sorts of rumors," Charles replied. "One was that the calliope on board actually played. That would be impossible, of course. The old organ has been out of commission for years." Charles went on to say that he himself had done some work in starting the restoration of the River Princess, but that what he had rebuilt was mysteriously hacked during the night. "That's a shame," said Nancy. "But I'm not discouraged," Charles replied. "I'll keep at it." Nancy smiled, then said, "Bess and George and I have wondered if people in the area who practice voodoo may be using this place for their meetings. Do you think that's possible?" Charles Bartolome considered this idea for several seconds. Then he said, "It's possible. But why would they destroy my work?" Nancy suggested that it might be to frighten him away. In any case, these people would not want the showboat moved to a place where they could no longer use it, and might be using various means to discourage Colonel Haver. The young man smiled. "Well, Nancy, it's your mystery. Come, I'll show you the rest of the boat." The ticket office and captain's suite were at the bow of the boat, while at the stern, back of the stage, were dressing rooms and living quarters. These bedrooms were for married couples, the young architect explained. The unmarried men stayed on the steam towboat that pushed the River Princess from place to place. The kitchen and dining room were on the towboat also. As the tour ended on the lower deck, near the ladder, Nancy suddenly leaned over to pick up something from a crack between the boards. "I think I have my first clue!" she cried out. End of Chapter 9.